Hi, I'm Megan Johnson, and this is another episode of Profit versus Pitfalls, Young Entrepreneurs. Everything we need to learn from these courageous, incredible young people that are stepping out and starting their own businesses. So today, we are speaking with Stephanie Riehl of Riehl Deal Marketing. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
I am so excited to meet you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to tell you though, I was chatting with some of my friends last night, telling them about the interview today, and I told them your name, Stephanie Riehl, Riehl Deal Marketing, and of course they wanted to know what came first, your last name or the name of the business?
Last name, of course, but the name of the business actually started as my personal brand in like 2007, 2008, and really then that transitioned and transformed into not only my personal brand, but my business too.
Now, when you say your personal brand, were you in business for yourself at the time, or what made you develop a personal brand?
You know, when I was first getting started in the realm of social media, digital marketing, and really those beginning areas, I was actually in college. And really that personal branding for me started with that naming and those handles. On as silly as it sounds, and thinking back then, it kind of all came together of securing those social media handles and different website domains and those different pieces on the branding side. So that was before really what is now Riehl Deal Marketing was really a thing, but at least not an official thing. But it really started first as, say, my Twitter handle. I've been at Riehl Deal for forever. And then really built the business and those different brands from there. But first, that personal brand piece, me showing up, my involvement with different networking groups and different organizations in the Valley from college and on, that Riehl Deal moniker really came from.
So the Riehl Deal piece started while you were still in college?
It absolutely did, yeah.
Oh, wow. So you just thought, I mean, because when I was in college, and I hated, when I was younger, I hated it when people would say this to me, you know, when I was your age, and now I'm going to do this to you. When I was in college, I don't think I was forward enough thinking about I needed to create a brand for myself. So, but you were thinking about that.
Absolutely. I think that for me, you know, I have this real interest in marketing. I have even before I officially had a marketing agency. But definitely there was this branding piece that was just really intuitive for me of wanting to secure that presence and being an early adopter of a lot of different platforms and technologies to test it out and see how that was working. And that absolutely started in college. Actually, Riehl Deal Marketing, the LLC and all that started in college too.
Did it really? So you created the LLC of Riehl Deal Marketing while you were still in college?
It has a different LLC name, but yes, it secured the LLC, the DBA, which is doing business as, all those different pieces for the brand. And that all started 11 years ago when I was I started doing the consulting and contract work that in 2009, and then the LLC and all those different paperwork pieces were all formed in early 2010.
See, what I love about what you just said is 2009, we still were in the middle of the recession, and you were out there creating this business. And what I love about that is often my clients tell me younger people, millennials, are lazy. And I think, look at all these millennials who really were starting out their careers in the middle of the Great Recession, and they got out there and kicked ass, which is what you're telling me you did.
Yes, I think that for me, my college experience was maybe a little bit different than what most people would think that traditional college experience is. I was a journalism major. I was also a business major at one point, and really I did 7 different journalism internships. You know, had a lot of experience in different newsrooms, magazines, national, local, regional publications, all across the board. And even, you know, really was looking at what that looked like beyond then. I loved the storytelling piece of journalism, but I was craving something more. I also had the sheer benefit of being surrounded by small business owners and entrepreneurs growing up. So I always knew that I wanted to own something for myself and be my own boss. But I didn't know exactly what that looked like while I was in college, taking back to 2008, 2009. But I could see very clearly that things were changing, and what really was lighting me up wasn't just the journalism side, but and loving the storytelling piece, but that there was more to it. I wanted to do more with understanding consumer behavior and some of that psychology of selling, and even the creativity of marketing. And then in my senior year, actually, I took my first official marketing course. I'll use the air quotes there, but sat in there that first day and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I need to be doing. But the reality was I was in my last semester of my senior year, had no other marketing experience other than helping some family members with some of their marketing campaigns in the real estate space when I was in high school, things like that. But I saw, that's what I wanted to do. And I knew I needed to get experience to get myself to a point where I could be marketable to businesses to start my career. So I started a business and took on any contract I could to learn marketing on the go. I always was more of learning in real time than from a book anyway. So it just was a really natural thing for me. And all these years later, we're now a full service marketing agency. So it's pretty cool to sit back and realize that and give thought to that whole journey too.
And so you took your first marketing class, you were a senior at college, and you took your first marketing class. What made you decide? Was it because you were interested in marketing? You thought, well, hey, I'll take a marketing class?
So I was very interested in marketing, but I had really this very interesting college experience where I actually started out as a music theater major. I got into the ASU program. It's one of the top non-conservatory programs in the country. And I wanted to, being the overachiever that I am, I wanted to triple major. I wanted to do music, business, and journalism. And my freshman year, that was discouraged actually by the counseling staff. And so I dropped the music part and then really dove into some of the journalism and business pieces. But just the way my schedule lined out and lined up, the marketing coursework didn't come until the end. So
okay. So you took the marketing course, you graduated, and then did you start your business right away, or did it started while your senior year and it just moved forward? What was that timeline like?
Yeah, so I graduated in the fall of 2009, and I started doing contract work in October of 2009. So a couple months before graduation.
Okay.
And then leveraged that experience where I was working on a couple of different local and even some state level projects for like the Arizona Centennial and a couple of other really cool projects in Arizona where I was learning on the fly. And then I leveraged that to take on my first full-time job working for somebody else February of 2010, but I was still working on client projects in my spare time. That side hustle life that people know it as now, I lived that actually for 9 years. So that started in 2009, 2010, once I was working for somebody else, and then actually lived that side hustle life until 2019.
Wow. So you did the side hustle till 2019. So what, two years ago? And then you decided, what was the tipping point where you said, I'm giving up the I call it the mainstream job to move out completely on my own? What was that tipping point?
At the time I was working for a very large Fortune 10 company at the corporate level, and I had been there a couple of months, but it was very clear to me throughout my career, I intentionally worked with a variety of different businesses, the Fortune 500, Fortune 10 companies, mom and pop shops, startups, franchise systems, you name it. I wanted exposure to it, both on the traditional, service side, business to business clients, as well as for consumer facing brands too. And that was really all intentional. But I got to a point where with that corporate environment that I was in, I was really finding that it moved at a very different pace than I was used to. And there was a lot of different pieces involved with that part of the work that was taking me away from the work that I was truly, really loving and missing and not able to take on as much on the client side. And I got to a point where I really realized that I just wasn't enjoying the work. I wasn't at a point where I needed to stay in that corporate environment where because I was getting offers left and right from clients who wanted to bring me on and couldn't take on the work because of the demands from the corporate environment, and something had to give.
Okay.
And it really didn't feel right to stick in corporate anymore. So I left and haven't looked back.
So you gave your notice, and then what was that first day of like of now it's the real deal 100% of the time. What was that first day like?
I mean, it was amazing. I think in so many ways there was such a weight lifted off my shoulders when I gave my notice and was able to transition out of that role. But to be really honest, I didn't have any contract signed. I had a lot of consulting projects in the works and people that were interested, and I had kept on saying, there's a waiting list. Because I could only take on so much capacity wise myself. But there were a lot of conversations that were happening, but I actually didn't have any contracts signed on that first day. But that excited me because I knew that I would figure it out. And I knew that there was a lot of interest and demand, and it just felt like it was the right decision at the time.
I love it. There was no contract signed, but that excited you.
Yeah.
I
love a challenge, so it was great. Yeah.
I love that. And so now you've been in business for 2 years, 100% of the time. What would you say was there anything that happened where you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect this piece. Was there any part where you're like, gosh, this was a different challenge for me?
Yeah, I think even right from that pivotal piece of since I had lived that side hustle life for so long, there's a different mindset of being a solo entrepreneur and taking on projects where it's you and all you, and you're running all of the pieces, versus really when it's your full-time endeavor and you are approaching it as an entrepreneur, business owner, not just a freelancer. There's definitely a different mindset, but also a lot of different pieces that you really need to put in place to be able to scale, different resources, outsourcing, being able to delegate tasks and bring on team members. And that's actually probably the hardest lesson I learned even last year in working with a business coach, was really able to see how some ways I was still mentally thinking of the business as I was when it was just me as a solopreneur, even though we have anywhere from 5 to 7 different specialists working on different projects at any time. So my biggest probably regret to date, I guess there's 2. The first is that I didn't leave working for somebody else behind a lot sooner.
Okay.
But I say that, and then also in the same breath would say that I also wouldn't change it, because doing that and having that background and having really all that experience under my belt to jump into full-time business ownership and that mindset and that mentality, I think that really gave me an advantage where I was able to invest in things like a new website and branding and those different pieces in the last couple of years that I wouldn't have been able to do if we didn't have that safety net built up from all those years of side hustle where I didn't have a lot of overhead. And then the other piece is probably not hiring soon enough. So those growing pains when you're trying to scale, and then there's still so many different pieces that you're involved in the day-to-day, that makes it challenging. And so I think that's the one lesson that I learned later on that I'm glad that I've addressed now, but it made things really difficult for a while when you didn't have those other resources that you really needed, and bringing on the right team members instead of just somebody to fill a spot too.
Yeah. Well, I know sometimes it's hard to give up those things that you don't necessarily you enjoy doing them, but it's not the best use of your time. There's like little things I do in my office, like even just when I ship out an order, like a book or something. It's not a good use of my time to do this. I should have my assistant do it, but I kind of enjoy doing it, And so it's hard sometimes to let those things go.
It is. It definitely is. And I think one of the things that I took myself through to get kind of ready for that process is to make a list of every single thing I was doing in a day and really be intentional and make a conscious decision in that moment. Should I be doing this, or should this be another member of my team? And that was really empowering to help with that delegation piece, but even some of those pieces of the business that I do really enjoy doing, but maybe aren't the best use of my time or aren't serving our clients as best as possible either. So
yeah. Well, now you mentioned your clients, so kind of talk a little bit about, so you're a one-stop brand marketing firm. Now, what does that really mean? So tell me, what do you do for your clients?
We truly handle any piece of marketing that primarily digital based, but everything from, and our clients really range. So the reason we're one-stop shop is because we cover every single piece and phase of marketing needs for a brand. That could be somebody who's brand new to market and needs a brand logo and brand messaging and concepting and all of that strategy work behind their launch before they've gone to market. Or it could be an existing business who needs a new website. Maybe it's an existing business who needs some support on social media or paid advertising or email marketing or even automation. Mm-hmm. And we handle all those different pieces, but from a brand perspective. So making sure that anything that strategically that we're putting into place not only aligns with goals and that we can really help enhance our clients' bottom line, mm-hmm. but that we're keeping the brand in mind too, that we are intentional with the content that's being incorporated, that it really reflects the brand, or the different marketing pieces, collateral pieces that really are going to help bring that brand vision to life, because that consistency for their clients, for their customer, is the most important piece to develop that relationship and to ultimately help them drive leads and sales. And when we don't have that consistency, I always tell my clients, confused customers don't convert. And so we really keep all of those brand elements consistent across all those different marketing pieces and channels.
So you say say that again, confused customers don't convert?
Confused customers don't convert.
Okay, which means, help me understand. So it means you tell me, what does that mean?
Absolutely. So if say your social media content is saying one thing, okay, and you have a call to action in a post to go to your website, and they go to a website and there's different colors being used, or there's a lot of different phrases that aren't what they just saw on social media, they might think they're in the wrong place, and they're going to more than likely jump ship and go to somebody else who does have that clear, consistent message, versus if you just had that consistency and that intentional strategy behind all the emails that you're sending, all the social media content that's going out, any of your paid advertising, tying that in with your email marketing campaigns, landing pages, websites, text messages, you name it. But really being able to have that one consistent point of view for all the messaging. So any of the wording or language that's being used, and then also the visuals too.
Okay.
Colors, fonts, images. And so we really help give that perspective and manage that point of view for all kinds of clients.
All right. And I've heard you mention social media several times. How important would you say social media is in building your business?
I would say for the first, even now, I think it's definitely a great driver of visibility and community, mm-hmm. and connection when it's used correctly. Social media is social, so there's a lot of value in pouring into community there and developing those relationships. Mm-hmm. What we always try to look at it as is one tool. It's not the only tool in an inbox or in a toolbox for a client, but it is one tool. And one of the benefits, even though organic reach, so any reach that you're not using paid advertising for on social media, even though organic reach is a lot harder to come by, it is actually one of those areas where we do still see a lot of growth for our clients that we're working with on the social media front, when that time and effort is put in. And so when used properly, it can be a great tool. It definitely can bring a lot of visibility and connection, but it isn't the only tool by any means.
And what would do you see a common mistake your clients make when it comes to using their social media? You're like, I see my clients do, I see this a lot. Clients do this.
I would say on those branding lines, putting throwing together a graphic and putting it up just to get something out, not posting in kind of a strategic or intentional way is one of those pieces, because that energy that you put into the different posts and the content, and even anything from, you know, an Instagram post to an email, if that energy behind it is really rushed and doesn't have a consistent strategy in line, it can lead to that confusion. But your audience can also pick up on if it's not consistent with something that they've heard from you before. And that consistency really is key for building a brand and building up that relationship. One of the easy examples of that is, you know, hurrying, and we all do this, we're all guilty of this, of, you know, oh, I'm going to just post this post in the moment. And 20 minutes later, you have your caption, you have your photo or a graphic, and maybe it wasn't really up to the usual standard of what you have, but it's out. There's a time and a place for that. But the challenge is when we do too much of that, we're not consistently aligning that content that's going out with the brand goals or the business goals.
Okay.
And it can really cause that confusion, or getting away from any of those usual brand colors or those different pieces that you would use. Sometimes when we're hurrying, we don't double check that it's the right brand pink. That's top of mind for us because one of my brand colors is pink. But that can definitely get in the way of results.
Yeah. I know that someone who does some of my posting on my website, she was in a hurry the other day and she misspelled entrepreneur. So I came, I mean, she's a wonderful person, but I came back to her, I said, you know, entrepreneur is misspelled now on my website. She's like, I was in a hurry. So yeah, you're right. That sort of making very, making the decision, taking thought and time when you make those kind of decisions. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give? So there's a younger entrepreneur, they're listening to what you have to say. What advice would you give them when they're at that moment where you were, where you're like, I'm gonna leave my corporate job and go 100% full time? What advice would you give them?
I think the one thing that I've learned throughout not only my career but out of life too is our experiences are all so unique that it's hard to give, you know, just whatever worked for me might not work for you. But I think the one thing that is true no matter who you are is there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people telling us what we should and shouldn't do, you know, how you should do something. And I'm all about helping other entrepreneurs feel empowered in where they're at in their journey. It's really hard to, especially talking about social media, hard not to compare to others and where they are at on their journey, but trusting the process and trusting where you are with it. And really, I'm a very much a gut feel person. A lot of the decisions that I've made for my business and my life have been off of that inner knowing and intuition. And I really think that when we get quiet and we can quiet out the noise of the outside world and listen to ourselves, we have that answer and can know that right direction to go in.
I agree with you 100% about listening to your gut. But have you ever been in a situation where really either your gut was confused, you're like, I really don't know what to do, or have you ever been in that situation where you followed your gut and it wasn't the right path, the right answer?
Yes, I think from my perspective, I don't know for me if that feels like it is maybe a gut decision or if my head got in the way.
Okay.
but I think in those moments, the other piece, and this has just always been my perspective and the way that I see that word failure or mistake, I don't see it as a bad experience. I like to think of it as a learning opportunity. And so the quicker that you can review what happened, understand maybe why it didn't work, and learn something for the future and fail forward, keep that on your journey. Don't let that be a setback. That can be truly a superpower for continuing to grow and succeed. Even if it feels like you're caught in the middle a little bit, or maybe you made a decision and it didn't work. Maybe that was just leading you to understanding that in a different way so that you didn't make that decision again in the future.
Yeah. Is there anything you do to keep yourself optimistic? I mean, I think sometimes being an entrepreneur can be very lonely. And as you said, sometimes not everything works out like you think it will. What do you do to keep yourself optimistic and keep yourself in that mind frame where you say, you know, it's not a failure. It's what did I learn from this? And I need to refocus and move on. How do you not get caught in that sort of that drain, you know, swirling down the drain of focusing on everything that went wrong? How do you remain optimistic and thinking forward?
Totally. I mean, we're all human. So that's part of the human brain, is to think and to think about maybe the less than positive experiences. But I have found so many times that if we get stuck in that, it kills our productivity or our creativity. And especially in my line of work, creativity is so important that if I'm in that critical space too long, it kills the rest of anything else that I'm working on. And so there's a couple of different kind of self-care practices that I meditate, and that really helps me kind of quiet out the noise and those different pieces. But meditation isn't for everyone. The other piece that actually I really get so much value out of is connecting with others. So mentorship and investing in the power of working with others. I actually have 2 business coaches this year, and I'm in 2 mastermind programs where I'm able to connect with entrepreneurs in a variety of different business types, some naturopathic doctors and nutritionists, you know, product-based businesses. And it's really great because I think that is one thing in being a solopreneur for so long. And even I actually just listened back to another interview I did recently where, and like, I think it was earlier this year, but I was talking a little bit about that solopreneur time, and it really was just me. I really did it all myself. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I, for the longest time, didn't know where to find that community. But I think that is a beautiful power of a lot of our online spaces, and the power of Zoom and connection, of being able to connect with people that are all over the country, all over the world, and finding, you know, you can even find digital mentors in some of the social media accounts that you follow. We choose, and we have the ability to choose who we follow on those platforms. So you follow people that you have an aspiration to be more like, those different pieces. If you're not ready to make the stretch and invest in mentorship or coaching on your own. But when you're ready and at that point, dive in with both feet and really get ready to connect with some amazing people, learn from their experiences, and more than anything, get that validation that we all need as humans, that none of us are alone. We all have similarities, especially if we're entrepreneurs. There's all things that we go through as entrepreneurs that when you have a community to pour into and connect with, it really does help you not feel alone on that journey.
That is very true. And I remember you telling me earlier that one of your earlier mentors was your dad.
Yeah.
And do you feel that this, and because I've heard you mention mentorship several times during this conversation, do you feel that that started with that relationship, that mentor-mentee relationship you had with your dad, or did it start even before that?
I definitely can't remember an earlier mentor than my dad. I was so blessed to have that connection. And then I think it also helped when early on in my career, I didn't have maybe as many mentors in those first couple of jobs where, you know, I had that consistency and had that connection to really be able to help navigate, because we don't have all the answers and we're all figuring it out as we're going. Nobody really truly has it all figured out. But I think that perspective really came not only from seeing and having that leadership by example, but also from that mentorship relationship that I had early on with him.
And you've taught me something. And again, we talk about digital, we talk about being online. I would never have thought to look for mentors, as you said, in the digital space.
Absolutely.
You know, I think very traditionally about, you know, the mentor-mentee relationship as somebody, you know, I know from a working environment, or, you know, I didn't even think about, as you were talking, I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Because there's groups that you can go to. I mean, so now you've piqued my interest. I'm going to go check it out.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, that's really a lot of those early on mentor experiences that I had in the last couple of years. My dad passed in 2013, so I haven't had that connection. But those digital mentorships were one of the first places that I started, and really can give you so much light and support even if it's somebody you've never met in real life. I mean, it sounds wild, but some of my greatest professional connections came from Twitter, and those early conversations I had there starting in 2008 and have led to amazing business relationships, amazing friendships for life. And I think Instagram and some of the other platforms that are around really help us develop those relationships. Like I said, social media really is all social, and it's a really great connection point to be able to develop those relationships too.
I love that you mentioned using Twitter back in 2008. I remember mentioning Twitter to one of my audiences, and it was in 2008, and someone raised their hand and they said, "What is Twitter?" It was, and I sometimes I think we forget that Twitter's been around for social media, Twitter, it's all been around for a little while.
Absolutely.
Okay, everything you've said is terrific. I want everyone listening and watching this to know how to reach you. So what would be the best way to find Stephanie Riehl?
Likely a great point to start is Instagram. I am at Riehl Deal. And then my company handles are at Riehl Deal Marketing, and I recently launched a brand new business, Riehl Deal & Co. So we're all there, or RiehlDealMarketing.com.
Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been great talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on board and sharing, and I can't wait to go online and look more further at Riehl Deal & Co.
Thank you so much. It was so great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and it was great talking with you.
It was great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.